Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So what I have here in front of me is ORQA's new BNF FPV drone. This is the DreamX, and I would say this is something that will be pretty interesting to test because at the same time it is a quad that is for today's FPV industry quite standard. It's a 5-inch freestyle quad with a 6S setup. This is basically what every manufacturer has in their lineup, but at the same time, it's a pretty interesting development in the industry because this is in a long time the first BNF that has been released by a company that is not one of the usual suspects out of China. So ORQA is basically moving into this market with a product, which is a pretty interesting development in the industry, I would say. So let's take a more detailed look at the setup here and how it is designed and what sort of components we have on before we go out here on the parking lot to give this thing a thorough test flight. So let's take a little tour of the components that are on here. We can see these nice motors with the ORQA design stating 6S and the brand logo. So this is their own design. I suspect this is probably one of the big motor manufacturers making those. So not stating any kV or size, but as far as I know, these are 22.7 1900 kV, so pretty standard but nice looking motors. Now where it really gets interesting is when we move from the motors to the stack here, because this is not something that ORQA has just taken from the market and put their logo on. This is a complete new development, and I think this is really nice to see that they went the extra mile here, because there are plenty of flight controllers and ESCs on the market. They could have just, bought some and rebranded them, but they developed this completely from the ground up. This is also made and produced by them. So pretty cool here. In the rear, also all from ORQA. So ORQA is associated with Immersion RC. This is why you have the VTX here and the receiver all in one board. Camera is a standard, I think, Foxeer camera, but really nice to see that the core electronics here are ORQA's own development. So this whole thing is not just, a marketing gag. They really went into developing FPV technology and electronics for this quad. Now, if we look at the frame, again, nothing really uncommon or out of the ordinary. It's just a really nice 5-inch frame with a ton of attention to detail. So we have a nicely integrated XT60 here in the rear. Let me try to get this in focus like this. So it's on a little extra board here. In case you break this plate off, it's easy to replace. We have an integrated GoPro mount, a nicely integrated camera, TPU mount here, and on the bottom we have some TPU landing sliders here. We have this little center screw holding the arms, so there's really no play in the arms. You're also going to see that the motor screws are somewhat integrated here into the arm. So all in all, this is a very nice frame design, and I know that they have been perfecting this design for almost 3 years or more, as far as I'm aware of, because this is something that has been designed with ORQA in collaboration with an FPV pilot named Igor. I was also involved in some of the discussions, so I know that this thing has really been thoroughly tested and is going to be a very mature and reliable design. So pretty cool frame overall that I really like, and that in my opinion does look really great. So I would say that's basically all I can say about this quad. Now again, this is nothing too special or uncommon. It's just something where you're gonna get a very well developed and mature and reliable product, and I think that is the value proposition that ORQA is mostly going with, including the fact that this is obviously compatible with ORQA's ecosystem. You get the ORQA controller that is going to work nicely with Ghost, matches their goggles very well, of course. So it's still a classic FPV drone, but in this case you're going to have a bit of extra trust and reliability with it, because it was developed from the ground up by ORQA. All the components, everything's very well tested, everything's made in Europe, and that is a bit, I would say, the thing that they are going with. Now, of course, this comes with a bit of an extra price. This thing is around 450 euros. So you're going to get from a Chinese competitor of ORQA, you're going to get something similar for 250 to 350 maybe from the large Chinese manufacturers. But then again, it's a bit something different, because this really is not like ORQA just took a Chinese BNF and rebranded this. This is a complete new development in that case. And I think you'll have to know for yourself if that justifies for you the extra price. But I think it's a really interesting development, and it's really cool that they showed this level of commitment basically to the hobby and the FPV industry, and invested all of these R&D resources to create this product. All right, so I think that's all I have to say about the DreamX for now. Let's just take it outside and fly it and see how it performs.
Okay, so here's the DreamX in action. And first of all, to be fully transparent, in that case, it's not footage that was recorded by me flying, because honestly, I'm a bit out of shape when it comes to 5-inch freestyle flying, because I'm mostly doing long range. So I thought, let's just use footage that was recorded by Mr. Roundhouse Tree, who was with me testing, so I can really showcase to you the full potential of this quad. And well, it does have a lot of potential. It's a real powerhouse. So this is clearly not a beginner quad, and it's not intended to. It has very aggressive motors. It's rather on the light side for a 5-inch freestyle setup. So very, very aggressive. The tune, in my opinion, was a bit too aggressive. I slightly reduced the multiplier. Motors were a bit hot. And I also changed the props to non-folding ones, which boosted performance even more. But still, this is a high-performance setup for experienced pilots, and even, I would say, pro to very experienced pilots are always going to have enough performance with this setup. Overall, I think this was the right decision from ORQA to go that way, because trying to turn a 5-inch 6S setup into something that is beginner-friendly doesn't make any sense. So really leaning into it and making this an aggressive, experienced pilot-oriented setup was the right decision in any case.
Now, another interesting thing that a few people missed is that this does come with the ORQA Care program, so it means you will be getting free vouchers for any replacement parts, no questions asked. So for arms, TPU parts, any carbon parts on this setup, you will get replacement for free 3 times. This is something I think is quite nice, and it also highlights a bit one of the advantages of buying this made in Europe quad. You will most likely get very good spare part availability, especially if you live in Europe. It will ship from Croatia, so you get all spare parts that you need pretty quickly. This is something very nice for one of those setups, because obviously it's very high power, and although it is robust, these things do break from time to time. So you will really be covered here when you need something, and the first free shots, I'd say, when you break something, are actually included in the price. So to conclude on the flight testing, I would say the main takeaway for me is that this is really clearly a very, very high performance setup intended for more experienced pilots and more ambitious freestyle pilots. It does make sense if you look at the price point that is rather high. This is really for somebody who is in the hobby and willing to spend a bit more, but in that case I would say it really makes sense, especially because with this slightly higher purchase price you're also getting more spare part availability, better service and so on, which is probably important for you if you want to keep your quad always ready and flying, and you do break a bit more stuff as somebody who's flying a bit more aggressively and a bit more risky. So overall, I would say it's a package that makes sense, and that is for the intended pilots really good.